So last weekend, I watched the Grateful Dead documentary. It's about 5 hours long. Has anyone seen it? Anyone here a Deadhead? No one's seen it? Well, so my main takeaway from the documentary, Long Strange Trip, which I highly recommend, is that Jerry Garcia and the Grateful Dead created the biggest and most enduring connected brand experience over the last 50 years. Now, I know it's a paradox to think of the Dead as marketers, but I actually think Jerry Garcia might be the world's best CMO. And that in itself is a paradox. But we're not here to talk about the Grateful Dead. We're here to talk about paradox.
Thanks, Amy. So the paradox of connection sounds like a pretty esoteric title for what is, quite a casual conversation here on the beach at Cannes. But actually, it refers to a pretty common feeling that I think we all have in our lives at the moment. The awkward feeling that the more connected we become, actually the more disconnected we feel. And a lot has been written about this. I found an article just the other day that said that the same technology that brings us closer together also drives us apart because it takes us out of the moment that we're in. But I actually think that Arianna Huffington summed it up the most perfectly here at Cannes a couple of years ago. She said that hyperconnectivity is the snake in the Garden of Eden. Hyperconnectivity is the snake in the Garden of Eden. So if we all agree that we are spending more time alone together than we ever have before, and we're together here in Cannes, let's talk about what role brands play in this and what we can do about it.
So brands today have so many roles. You could argue it's increasingly difficult to make smart choices. When everything is possible, how do you start filtering down and finding those opportunities the most right, knowing that today brands function as uniters of race and religion in this fractious time that we live in. They offer up shared values that connect us emotionally and actually now bridge gaps that were boundaries that kept us from relating across geography and across age. And while this is super powerful, it's not the end of the story. They're actually creating places and spaces. So again, all of these things are magical and they're fantastic, but it just brings up, again, more choice and more options for what might be right for a brand. And not to be dramatic, and we thought about not even including this because this could be a talk all on its own, but in the world now where coliseums were built based on societal ideals, famous people were named on these stadiums, we now sort of start to worship brands, and our societal ideals are best represented in places like Citi Field, which again is a paradox over history, but again represents another opportunity or another possible path for a brand.
So I think, as Amy's pointed out, thank you, this is going to be a fun thing with the clicker back and forward. But, as Amy's pointed out, brands play they're more important than they've ever been. But in order for us and in order for marketers and advertisers to leverage this opportunity, we have to start to purposefully shape brands to fulfill these new roles that they play in people's lives. And that means, first of all, injecting enough meaning into them for them to become platforms for shared values, and then architecting them in a sufficiently open and participative way for people to take ownership of them and to start using them as an extension of themselves. Because we know that brands are not built in the ad break anymore. Brands are built in culture. And in order to earn a presence in culture, you have to create experiences and content that are designed to travel through conversation. And so we've started to think about this idea of culture as the new media. We don't build brands by just buying spots anymore. We build brands in culture. Culture is the new media. Culture is the new canvas. And if culture is our new media, then we need to start thinking about brands as memes. I'm not talking about, this definition of the word meme, the internet meme was actually that term was stolen from Richard Dawkins, who first coined the term in his book The Selfish Gene in 1976. And the idea of genes is far more profound than what we think about today when we talk about internet memes. The idea of a meme was that it was a single unit of culture, an idea or behavior that would spread from person to person in culture. In other words, a meme is in effect the single unit of culture. And as Dawkins said, it could be a tune, it could be an idea, it could be a catchphrase, it could be a way of making pots. But whatever it is analogous to a gene. And the way a gene propagates itself in the gene pool and jumps from body to body, so a meme propagates itself within the meme pool and jumps from brain to brain. So if brands are memes, how do we start to shape them in a way that is designed to spread through culture? And we've been thinking about this a lot. And as a result, we've developed this framework for building brands that we call connected brands. And there's a lot to the connected brands methodology and many tools that sit under it. And we're not going to go into all of that today, but just as a short 101 intro, what do we mean when we talk about connected brands? So to us, a connected brand is a brand that lives in people's lives by connecting with them on an emotional level, wherever they are and whenever they are, and inspiring them to connect with others. So there's a lot in that statement, and it's all there for a reason, so I'm going to break it down. The first is that when we talk about a brand that lives in people's lives, we exist in a world that is literally drowning in brands. They're on every street corner, we're all wearing them, they're on every shelf, they're on every device, on every screen, and as a result, people ignore them or forget them. Connected brands manage to rise above that noise by becoming a valuable, value-added part of people's daily routine. So connected brands live in people's lives. They do that by connecting with people on an emotional level. And I think a lot of times we think about connecting on an emotional level as some sort of intangible thing, some kind of alchemical creative process. Actually, for us, we believe emotional connections come very simply from relevance and authenticity, from finding the intersection between what is relevant, what is important to your customers, and what's true and authentic to your brand. But the thing about a connected brand is it doesn't just connect with people on an emotional level like once a year on a single channel. A connected brand connects with people on an emotional level wherever and whenever they are, which is a commitment to creating a truly connected consumer experience. It's about understanding changing media behavior within an increasingly connected and mobile world, and it is about building fully integrated multi-channel communications. But connected brands don't just connect with people on an emotional level wherever they are and whenever they are. The most important dimension is that they inspire people to connect with others. They inspire people to connect with others. And this is the most important dimension because when we talk about making brands part of culture, what is culture? Culture is that which arises from the interaction between people. So if you want your brand to be part of culture, you have to get people to talk about it. You have to get people to share it. And so when we talk about creating connected brands, we're talking about three dimensions: emotional connections, experiential connections, that notion of connecting wherever and whenever, and cultural connections, the idea of inspiring people to connect with others.
I'm telling you, this still reminds me of the Grateful Dead, and I know we're not here to talk about the Dead, but the Dead were fiercely protective of their brand. They defied conventions. They defied the recording industry. They created an emotional connection. It was difficult to tell the band from the crew, from the Deadheads, and they were so relevant in culture at a time in the 60s when the tide was turning, it was changing, and to stay relevant over 50 years. And they also built the wall of sound, changed the way sound was delivered to large audiences and concerts. So again, this isn't about the Dead, but you really have to see that because it's a great example of a brand that you wouldn't think of as actually a very calculated experience, very connected brand. So what did we do here? So we have this positioning about connected brands. It's our mantra. We consider it our North Star at VMLY&R. It's sort of our highest ambition for our brands, and it's starting to infuse the language we use with each other. one of the things about the positioning that makes it so strong for us and not just words on a page is that we took this idea and we found a way to measure it. And measurement, incredibly important. What's creativity without effectiveness, and the reverse. So we call this the Connectivity Index. So we're going to spend a couple of minutes going through the Connectivity Index in its form right now, which will say, let's see if this, yes. So we're going to invite you into our Mad Brand Lab, tell you a little bit about where we've been. Like Jason said, we've been thinking about this for quite some time over the last 6 or 9 months. And so we believe we're at a place that's super compelling with brands, and it's already changed the way we're having conversations with our brand clients. So with that, let's just move into the next thought here, which is, when we first started, we started analyzing and reviewing different data sources and what is possible and how might we take this concept of connected brands and start really putting action and a pathway for action for brands underneath it. So there's not just something we say, it's something we do and something that we practice. And we started with 2 dimensions that you'll see here: emotional connectedness and cultural connectedness. As we were searching for data sources and looking for truth, we realized that oftentimes what happens when we're with clients, the best practice is actually resident inside of us. And we found that best practice in BAV, Brand Asset Valuator. If you're not familiar with it, it is an incredible source of data-driven marketing, sort of masquerading as a brand study. But it's actually an incredible resource that lives inside, as a consultancy, lives inside of VMLY&R. And so we started plotting out brands, and this was maybe about, 4 or 6 months ago. We started plotting out brands, playing with the metric, playing with the data so that we could see how brands we know, not necessarily client brands, but brands we know in the world, how might they score? And while we did this, and we thought this is good, and it showed us some interesting and super compelling things that we're very proud of over the time we've worked with Wendys. They have gone from emotional connection to complete social connection, and in any quadrant, being right where they are is total envy spot. But we realized this wasn't really enough, because what this leaves is a gaping hole around experience. And when we look out for experience measures, I don't know how many of you get 10 or 20 emails a day for the latest vendor CX measurement methodology and tool. What we're looking for, we don't think exists. We're looking for total experience measurement and assessment so we can take action on it. So this next bit is neither a CX measurement, nor solely sort of a content, media, channel measurement. We're doing both in this assessment, and what it does for us is it brings all of this together into one complete Connected Brands Connectivity Index. But before we go on to that, just fix in your mind these next 3 slides. So this is what the fast food, this is in the States, this is what fast food looks like, and you see Wendys. This is, again, with 2 dimensions. This is what Ford looks like, which is also interesting. One of our clients investing heavily in the CX side of experience. And then here's New Balance, another one of our clients. Familiar with the brand, a total challenger in a category of giants. So again, what about experience? Here's what we did. We took the 2 dimensions we had, emotional connectedness and social connectedness, and added this 3rd dimension. And this is where we start to talk about data visualization. And so I'm sure that we're going to get there with some kind of super fancy model. For now, though, what we're doing is using our assessment criteria, and then we're plotting these brands, replotting them together, showing the relative strength of the experience combined with emotional and cultural connectedness. And you can just see a couple of things that change. What this shows us, and this is how you can tell this is an unbiased model. You can see that Nike scores very well. They're not a client brand, but everything that we can know and see quantitatively and through our expert analysis, the strength of Nike as a connected brand is maybe only outpaced by Amazon at this point. We're super proud of our work with New Balance, a company much smaller than any of the brands in the category, continually committed to experience, and so they're in a very good position right now. Same goes for Wendys. We looked at this data and thought, okay, Wendys is a little bit lower, perhaps doesn't score quite as well as McDonald's, but actually, considering again a challenger out kind of out presenced, so to speak, by McDonald's, this is phenomenal. And so we use this again, what Jason referred to, as the underpinnings to our model, for a complete model for connected brands. So it's these three things in combination that allow us then to have a different kind of conversation with brands and create a situation where we are setting our teams and the relationships up to have all of these conversations at roughly the same time and make sure that they're all valued equally. Oftentimes, one piece of this, if a model doesn't account for it, will be more valued than, and one will be less valued. And certainly it depends on the brand, exactly what the size of these bubbles should look like, but we want to make sure we're starting at an agnostic perspective, valuing all three dimensions equally.
So thank you. We're here in Cannes, and we've been talking a lot. We think maybe we should show you some creative work. So we want to show you some work from New Balance and Wendys, work that we think is really applying the principles of connected brands, really leaning into those three dimensions. The first is a piece of work that we did for New Balance to support their sponsorship of the London Marathon. And this piece of work was really based on two principal insights. The first was the realization that almost everyone that starts the London Marathon actually finishes it. So if we wanted to support runners, we didn't need to support them during the race, we needed to support them during their training period leading up to the race. The second insight was that, particularly in London, runners, no matter how serious they are as athletes, at the end of a training run, they want to go and enjoy a nice cold pint. And so in creating 120 days of support for these athletes, we wanted to give them the ultimate refreshment. Take a look.
Training for the London Marathon is not easy. It's daunting for most people. Insane, really. That's why in London, runners love to finish their training with a nice cold pint. So we decided to give them the ultimate reward. New Balance presents the Runaway Pub, paying for pints with miles. We designed a pub where the only currency accepted is running miles. We created a unique payment system that turns the miles you've run into real currency.
Just reward for all the hard miles.
Through the Strava running app, we invited users to join the Runaway Challenge. A card was then automatically uploaded into their Apple or Google wallet. As they ran, the card filled up with miles that turn into currency in real time. The more miles you run, the more pints you can buy.
I was thinking whether I should go and do another jog around here.
The Runaway Pub was part of a 120-day integrated campaign created to support runners while they train for the London Marathon. And in London, who doesn't love a nice cold pint? So runners went mental. During 3 months of activation, over 23,000 runners added our card to their phone wallets. Together, they ran more than 500,000 miles, earning more than 60,000 pints, making marathon training a reason to celebrate. Mile by mile, pint by pint.
I realized last night with all the walking I was doing up and down the Croisette that we really should have opened a runaway here. So the next piece of work is for Wendys. And Wendys has been an amazing story for VMLY&R because we've been working with this client for 6 or 7 years now. And during that time, together with the client, we've managed to radically increase the brand's connectivity. And one of the ways that we've done that is to really lean into this idea of cultural connectedness and experiential connectedness, connecting with people wherever and whenever they are. And in many instances, that has taken the brand into places it would never previously have gone. Amazing, rich conversations on Twitter. Then, getting up out of Twitter and stepping into Spotify. Deep conversations on Reddit. Well, recently we discovered that a lot of Wendys customers were showing up in a new environment, and we decided to meet them where they were there too.
Let's now talk Fortnite, shall we? It's the newest video game craze, spreading fast among kids, college kids, even celebrities.
Kids are nuts for this Fortnite.
Fortnite has taken over the gaming world, becoming the most streamed game on Twitch ever. But brands are left out of the action, either tweeting from the sidelines or paying big bucks for in-game sponsorships. So when Fortnite announced a new event called Food Fight between Team Pizza and Team Burger, Wendys saw an organic way-in. We found out Team Burger stored their beef in freezers. And Wendys doesn't do frozen beef. So we got on Twitch, chose a character with red hair and pigtails, dropped into the game, and instead of killing other players, we started destroying burger freezers. Again and again and again, for 9 hours straight. We also declared our mission on Twitter, sending hundreds of thousands of gamers to Twitch to watch us play. And soon other players stopped killing each other and started killing burger freezers with us.
Hey, Wendy's, dude, let's go!
Top Twitch streamers took notice.
I saw a Wendys stream over here, dude.
Oh, you smacking the burgers, freezers?
This shit's lit. Bro, this kind of stuff keeps the game fresh.
Wendys really pushing the fact that they have fresh, never frozen beef patties inside Fortnite.
Thank you so much for coming to the stream, Wendy.
News outlets were talking about it. Even Twitch posted a highlight reel of Wendy's best freezer kills. Then, our own competitors showed us some respect.
I'm a boss in the skirt. I'm a dog, I'm a flirt. Write a verse while I twerk. I wear off white at church. How do you make the preacher sweat? Read the Bible, Jesus wept.
But most importantly, the game developers removed the freezers from every burger restaurant, meaning Wendys had rid Fortnite of frozen beef forever.
So there are sort of a ton of shortlists for that work already, and we're hoping for good things this week, so keep your fingers crossed.
So you might ask, so what's next for my brand? What should I do? What should I do as soon as I get home from Cannes? Well, there's really 3 areas to think about, like we've already mentioned. It's always starting with the emotional connection. We've had a couple interesting debates among the team, whether the connection, the complete connection goes from emotional to social to experiential, or does it go from emotional to experiential to social? Did I say those in a different order? That's what I meant to say, if I didn't. It's an interesting thing to talk about. Could be a follow-on chat. You know, we kind of left it at maybe it depends based on the brand, but we would lean toward following the maxim that how a brand behaves is as important as what it says. And in that case, we would say you create an emotional connection, an experiential connection, and then sort of cultural connection and relevance comes from the combination of those 2 things. So kind of takeaway thoughts for you. Emotionally, you know, think about your brand, think about its advocacy. From a cultural perspective, think about sentiment, think about reach. And from an kind of experiential perspective, think about those 2 beautiful case videos that Jason just shared as not just sort of one-and-done stunts or activations, but think of them as progressions or nodes in a continuum of data and progressive relationships and increasingly deepened relationships between a consumer and a brand. And when you think about them in that way and you start to use that kind of language with your team and with your client, you're having an entirely different conversation than a typical sort of campaign, Marcom, start and stop conversation. And to us, that's what makes this all so powerful and makes us just super passionate to keep exploring and working on the next version and the next version of this.
Thank you. So in summary, in an increasingly connected world, brands, in order to survive and thrive, have to become increasingly connected as well. Start to think about culture as the new media and start to figure out how you transform your brand into a meme. Before we go, Wednesday, tomorrow, 2 o'clock, Lumiere Theatre, We Beefing with Wendys, Mark Reed, and our global CCO, Debbie
Yep.
Van Dieven.
Wendys, Wednesday, We Beefin'. 3 Ws. Yes.
Thank you.
you.